The Prime Minister says he's pumped up for the campaign after criticism of a rather lacklustre effort so far. Vicky, Emily and Raphael are with me. And Vicky, I'll come back to David Cameron's passion in just a moment, if I may. But let's talk first of all about his commitment about small businesses and this letter that appeared in the Daily Telegraph this morning.
Yeah, that's right. And the Tories are back on what they would see as their favourite subject, really, the economy. They want to talk about that from now until polling day. They see it as their very, very strong card. And we've had another one of those letters. We've seen a couple already appearing in the newspapers, this one from 5,000 small businesses. But it did turn out that it wasn't the spontaneous outpouring of support for the Conservatives that you might have first thought. It was organised by Karen Brady, the Conservative peer, and David Cameron, small business ambassador, also of course famous for being in The Apprentice. And the Conservative Minister David Gauke, the Conservative Treasury Minister, was asked about this on the Daily Politics a little earlier.
It's very impressive because you produced it, isn't it? This is a Conservative central office produced letter.
Well, it's signed by people from no political background and those who are long-term.
No, but this is a Tory stunt. I mean, if you've gone to have you been on to the Telegraph website?
The Telegraph website?
Yes.
No.
Well, because in passing it over, Conservative Central Office, and passing it over to the Telegraph, you forgot to take out the metadata tag, which shows it was prepared by Conservative Central Office. Well, and you just handed it over. It's a piece of Tory propaganda.
It's been no secret that for people to sign this letter, there's a page on the Conservative Party website.
So the Conservatives, they're trying to downplay all of that. They say that this kind of thing is important, getting support from the business community, and they're really trying to get across the message to voters that this isn't about billions here, billions there, the deficit, debt. It's personal because it's about public services, and they say that if the economy isn't working properly, you don't have growth, and you just don't have the money to spend on education and health.
OK, Vicky, thanks for that. And Emily Ashton from BuzzFeed, it was one of your colleagues on BuzzFeed who uncovered this. Tell us what happened.
Yes, well, my colleague Jim Waterson spotted that metadata, not the megadata which Andrew Neil just pointed to, and saw that it was from CCHQ. And I think the point here is that, you know, a lot of people will look at these front pages and think, oh, wow, look at all these thousands of businesses that have joined together to make this point. But actually they were asked to by the Tory party, and it's not quite as organic as it seems. And also we've seen a couple of those people who signed that letter. A couple of them were duplicates, and one of them has actually said his name shouldn't have even been on there. So it has caused quite a row in the end.
Raphael, I would like to talk to you about David Cameron upping the passion. I mean, it certainly looked like he'd gone to work on 3 shredded wheat this morning.
He was, in his own words, pumped up.
Is this going to work?
Well, I think the problem here is that it's very hard to tell, because those of us who picked up some of the criticism from inside the Conservative camp knew that there was this idea around that he hadn't been coming across as very passionate, and some of his colleagues were saying, you know, it's not good enough to just look like the sort of bloodless accountants promising to fix the books. You've got to project a sense of reason why you do it, why you in politics in the first place. And so clearly he woke up this morning and said, right, well, I have to do that. But the danger is it comes across as so theatrical, because it's a switch from the sort of campaign tone they've had before, that certainly those of us who see the change think, well, this is sort of thespian, it looks like a kind of piece of performance art. But the reality is a lot of other people might not have been following it, and he certainly comes across as looking quite passionate. So that's probably better than continuing to look as if he's just sort of phoning it in. But it wasn't the most authentic performance of sort of theatrical campaign passion I've ever seen.
Vicky, is it your sense that David Cameron has been a bit too chillaxed so far, or has he, as he's been saying, just been a man who's been in control?
I think the problem partly could be that he's trying to go from Prime Minister, he's been Prime Minister for 5 years, and looking prime ministerial, if you like, and that's a sort of very different tone to getting out there on the campaign trail, you know, getting a bit sweaty, getting down and dirty, as some people said. And I think it's very different, isn't it, from that kind of image you want to project as Prime Minister when you're on the world stage. And it could just be, actually, there's been a problem with that gear change, trying to sort of rise above the fray. But I think in some ways the problem has been that passion of why he wants wants to be Prime Minister, why the Conservatives want to win in 10 days' time, just hasn't really got across to voters. And instead they're talking about dry figures, which lots of people just feel it doesn't mean anything to them.
And both of you here in the studio with me, 10 days to go, as Vicky says, little change in the opinion polls. Can you see any way of the deadlock being broken, Raphael?
Well, no, I mean, certainly on the dry figures, I mean, the Conservatives, there's a GDP number out tomorrow, which everyone's expecting to show the economy is still growing, although perhaps by slightly less than it has done in recent months. I think the Conservatives are determined that this week they get back to this key subject. I mean, broadly speaking, the big campaign theme for the Tories has been, look, the economy in 2010 was in the right old mess. You may not think it's brilliant now. You may not want to high-five George Osborne for delivering a magnificent recovery, but you've got to admit it's a bit better. David Cameron, competent as Prime Minister, move along, nothing to see here. It's quite clear now that that campaign message, although it seemed very plausible 4 weeks ago, is simply not doing enough. It's also quite clear that while Ed Miliband has raised his game surprisingly for a lot of people, and quite a lot in the last 3 weeks, that's come along quite late, and so we are still in deadlock. And then you have this situation in Scotland that is just sort of thrown everything up in the air. So no, to be honest, certainly it's very hard to see something in the next 10 days that will substantially alter that dynamic.
Is that your view, Emily, as well?
I think the Conservatives probably need to offer something a bit more than just this concept of the economy getting better, and actually show that what does it actually mean for people. And I think Labour have been very good at that on the housing issue particularly, and saying we can help you and actually save some money.
OK, well, we'll be talking about Labour